Hello and welcome back to another breaking news update. My name is Jimmy Boyd and you are watching Boyd News. I want to thank you so much for tuning in today. We're going to be talking about Russia here and their defense spending, on how much their overall GDP of their country is going towards their war planning, okay, and their stockpiles. So as you can see here, these are different pictures. I've got a slideshow up for you. Different photos of their manufacturing, okay? So for their main battle tanks, artillery shells, ammunition, whatever might be. Here's helicopters right here in this video with Vladimir Putin, the president of Russia. So this is going to be a very interesting video because it'll definitely give all of us an insight to just how committed Vladimir Putin is to this war in Ukraine. And also, it may give us some clues as to why the majority of the West, at least the European countries right now, are preparing. They're getting ready for war with Russia. Okay, I know that many of you are probably thinking, well, that's just fear mongering, and these leaders, these defense ministers of these countries are just crazy and they're overthinking this and whatnot. Well, look at this on your screen here. Russian defense spending is at 7.5%. Okay, and let me give you just normal figures. Normal numbers are right around somewhere between 1 and 3% for most countries. Okay, and right now Russia's at 7.5%. So apparently they are at roughly uh, 1/3 of their GDP is going towards defense spending. Think about that for a minute. Okay, so the United States is roughly about close to a quarter of their defense spending, just under that, I think, maybe around 20%, or even less. So it's not, and that's just the United States. So imagine these other countries that have even smaller defense spending numbers, like 1% or even less than 1%. So many countries in Europe are preparing right now. They're starting to realize that they need to up their defense spending, because Russia is in like a prime state right now. Should they want to go to war with the West, or commit to any war really? Okay, they've got their manufacturing set up. They've got their stock supplies well plenished. Okay, they have North Korea helping them out. Okay, they've been able to evade sanctions to maintain their operations, maintain building these battle tanks, building artillery shells, building missiles, whatever it might be. So Russia's been able to maintain this all at the same time while literally fighting the entire world. Okay, because all the Western countries have been supplying weaponry to Ukraine, and it's basically Russia doing all of that fighting against the entire West. Okay, obviously they're just fighting Ukraine on the ground, right? But they're fighting against American and European weapons. So I want to go over this article here. I think it's very interesting to show all of you. So this is off The Guardian. Okay, so it says here, a lot higher than we expected. Russian arms production worries Europe's war planners. So you see what I mean? Whenever I was saying that these countries are getting worried that there's potential war, I mean, look at that, 7.5% of Russia's GDP. That's a really large amount, and obviously they're at war right now, right? But that means that they're only already at the ready. Their manufacturing is set up. Everything is already set up for them to go to war. Should they want to go to war with larger countries or maybe NATO or something like that, right? So let's talk about this. So as Ukraine has scrambled to source ammunition, arms, and equipment for its defense, Russia has presided over a massive ramping up of industrial production over the last 2 years that has outstripped what many Western defense planners expected when Vladimir Putin launched his invasion. Total defense spending has risen to an estimated 7.5% of Russia's GDP. Supply chains have been redesigned to secure many key inputs and evade sanctions, and factories producing ammunition. Vehicles and equipment are running around the clock, often on mandatory 12-hour shifts with double overtime, in order to sustain the Russian war machine for the foreseeable future. So apparently, many of these people that are working in these factories, they're working 12-hour shifts, 6 days a week, and they have to show up there. They have to be on time. They cannot, they're not allowed to call out. It's like very strict or they're fired. Okay. It's like obviously the work is there. If you really want to put in the time and make some money, you could work. But it's very strict and very, very long hours and 6 days a week, only one day off. Okay. So the transformation has put defense at the center of Russia's economy. Putin claimed this month that 520,000 new jobs have been created in the military industrial complex, which now employs an estimated 3.5 million Russians, or 2.5% of the population. Machinists and welders in Russian factories producing war equipment are now making more money than many white collar managers and lawyers, according to a Moscow Times analysis of the Russian labor data in November. So I just want to note here too that just goes to show why Russia's economy is able to maintain a lot of this too, because they've got to be producing so much money from just this war machine going on in Ukraine. This country is making enormous amounts of money off of the war, and it's probably what's helping boost our economy and keep it afloat versus it collapsing or something like that, because they're able to make all this money off of just building all these these military supplies. Excuse me. So Putin on Thursday visited Uralva Gonzavod, the country's largest producer of main battle tanks, where workers boasted that it had been among the first to establish round the clock production. The Russian leader promised funding to help train an additional 1,500 qualified employees for the plant. As Russia's war in Ukraine drags to its third year, the massive Russian investment in the military, projected this year to be the largest as the share of GDP since the Soviet Union, has worried European war planners who have said NATO underestimated Russia's ability to sustain a long war. So I think a lot of countries thought that like sanctions, when Russia first went into Ukraine, that sanctions were going to severely impact the country, and they were going to struggle to maintain this war and all these different things. They thought that this was really going to hurt them, but it really has not. Their economy has regained itself. It struggled there, especially the Russian ruble. That's the only thing probably, is the Russian ruble looks like it's continuing to fall a little bit at a time, but right now it's semi-stable. But their economy has continued to improve in a way, with all this money being spent. So this ability to them for them to produce all these weapons and everything has really helped out their economy greatly. We still haven't seen where is Russia's breaking point, said Mark Rieske, a deputy director in the policy planning department of Estonia's defense ministry. Basically, 1/3 of their national budget is going on military production and on the war in Ukraine. But we don't know when it will actually impact on society. So it's a little bit challenging to say when this will stop. So they have no idea, how long they can keep up this war for. But I mean, 7.5% defense spending is pretty high, and they're spending a good amount of majority of the money that they make just on defense as well. So that's them producing these tanks and shells and ammunition, whatever it might be, for them to fight this war. One key indicator in the artillery war has been the domestic manufacture of shells, which experts put at 2.5 million to 5 million units a year. Look at that, 2.5 to 5 million units of artillery shells. That's insane. Rieske called the trends worrying, noting that production could run above 4 million units in the next year or two. The import of more than 1 million shells already from North Korea and a strategic stockpile of shells in the millions gives Russia an additional cushion. While that number may not give Russia the needed capacity to make significant territorial gains in 2024 or 2025, it nonetheless puts Ukraine at a significant disadvantage on the front lines, where Russia has at least 3-1 superiority in artillery fire, and often even more. It's a lot higher than we expected, really, Rieske said at the Russian production numbers. Excuse me. So, where it says right here that it puts Ukraine at a significant disadvantage on the front lines, just think about this alone. I put out a video recently that Russia's president Vladimir Putin was speaking at a conference, and this was back in I believe October or something like that of last year. And he was stating at that conference that all it would take is roughly about a week, when supplies stop coming in from the West, that they could literally collapse in 1 week. So right now their supplies are dwindling horribly. Okay, they're not getting really any supplies at all, because the US is the main backer of Ukraine. And right now, there's a huge aid package held up in Congress, excuse me, that's not being given to Ukraine. And look at what's going on. So they're losing in Avdiivka. They're having to fall back to defensive positions, and it's making them struggle greatly right now. So Ukraine doesn't have the ability to produce all these tanks and shells and all these different things. A lot of what they get comes from the West. So when the West stops giving them these supplies, they're going to be struggling heavily. Okay, and Russia is able to produce a good majority of what they use in their own country. Yes, they are getting some imported from, North Korea, and who knows, maybe from even other places. Who knows if China is helping them out as well. But they're able to produce a lot of this, like you see here on your screen, all these battle tanks. They're able to reproduce them after they get destroyed on the battlefield. And Ukraine can't do that. Ukraine has to go around the world and beg for more supplies just to keep this war going for themselves. So Russia definitely has the advantage here because their country is already set up and for a wartime economy. So that's why I was kind of tying this into all these videos that I put out with all these defense ministers from around the world that claim that Russia is preparing to attack a NATO member. Yes, that might be fear-mongering, and yes, that may not be something that could actually happen, but should Russia want to do that, they are in a prime position to do so right now. Think about that. They really are. Compared to other countries that are not prepared, countries that have very low defense spending, they're not focusing on producing, artillery shells or just ammunition or anything like that. Russia's at a severe advantage compared to most countries right now. They're probably one of the only countries that are spending so much money on defense right now. So they are ready to go should they want to, unleash a war with the West, for example. So I just thought that was interesting. I just kind of wanted to tie those in together and just let you think about that and help people understand and realize how committed here Russia is to this war in Ukraine. And potentially it's waiting to be seen. Is Russia committed to go to war with the West at some point too? I have no idea. We won't know that until something happens with this war in Ukraine where it winds down or some side wins. We'll just have to wait and see if that is actually something that's true. But many countries in the West are warning about that. It's primarily in Europe. They're warning and they're worried that Russia's prepared to go to war with the West. And like I said, when you see all these pictures here and you look at Russian defense spending being at 7.5%, that's a really high number. 1/3 of their GDP in their country, they are willing to commit to defense spending. That's an insane amount of money for any country to commit. So it seems to me like they're going all in here. And the West is starting to do so as well. They're starting to up their defense spending as well. Many countries are announcing 2% or more. NATO's come out and said they need to commit more than just 2%. They're talking even 3 or 4%. All right, so war is definitely looking like it's right around the corner. It's very possible. So I hope you're all ready for it, and I hope you got something out of this video. If you did, please hit the like button, and also if you enjoyed my content, please consider subscribing to the channel, hit the notification bell, that way YouTube can notify you. And we do put out several of these updates every single day. And I appreciate you being here again. I hope you all have a great day. Thanks again for tuning in. Everybody take care and God bless. We'll see you in the next one.